Lisa, and I'm going to explain to you how to start a homeschool program in the state of Georgia. Now, please remember that this is strictly for the state of Georgia because every state has its own legal guidelines. Now, before we get started, I'd like to dispel a simple myth. Many people think that homeschooling is a new concept of the 20th century. It is not. Parents hundreds of years ago used to homeschool their children, mainly because there were no huge schoolhouses like we have today to fit hundreds of kids. Schoolhouses were usually made to house about 20 children, and they were in very rural areas, meaning parents had to travel many miles to get their kids there. As in the case of, say, my grandmother, about 100 years ago, her parents had to pay for them to go to school, and there were 5 children. So they started out going to a regular school, but then it just became too expensive, and they ended up being homeschooled. Now, as a homeschool parent myself, I'm going to explain to you the legal guidelines, the coursework that's required, and also some of the options that you have to customize your program. So let's start with the legal guidelines. Now, the first thing that I would do is to go to your local Board of Education and to get a copy of the legal requirements because they can change from year to year. Now, those legal guidelines will tell you everything that you need to do. It's basically a checklist. Now, the first thing if you're going to start your child being a homeschooler is that you must submit a form to them to let them know that you want to homeschool. It's called a letter of intent. Once you submit that, you also need to know that the compulsory attendance law requires that every child between the ages of 6 and 16 must attend either a public, a private, or a homeschool program. Now, children are required to attend 180 days a year, just like the regular public and private school. And children also have to have their program going for 4.5 hours a day in their core subjects. And their core subjects are math, reading, language arts, science, and social studies. Those 5 core subjects have to total up 4.5 hours a day. Now, certainly you can customize the program by adding in other things if you choose to. Now, the second thing that you need are the attendance forms, which, by the way, all the forms I'm speaking of you can get from the Board of Education or download them off of the Board of Education website. Now, the attendance forms need to be submitted once a month to show how many days your child has been in school. Now, what worked best for me was to submit the forms and then add to it every month. Now, it is very, very important that you keep a copy of those because if you lose the form, you cannot go to the Board of Education and get a copy. At the end of those 180 days, you need to submit them a master copy, which is just showing all 180 days on a single form. The other requirement is that every 3rd year, children have to be tested. They're not tested by the Board of Education. You have to take on the testing yourself. As in our case, I found a place like Silver Learning Center that does tutoring for children. They can do the testing for you. So every 3rd year will be 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th grade. You will keep a copy of those records. They do not go to the local Board of Education. And those records will be very important once your child gets ready to go to college, if that is their choice. Now, some of the resources that I used for going through the curriculum and choosing what I wanted was, one, to go to the teacher's store so I could actually put my hands on the books, open them, look through them, and decide what I liked or didn't like. The other was the internet. You can find some discounts on the internet and also get some parent reviews. And the third source was the local homeschool association. Most counties do have one, and if you call them, you'll be talking to parents that actually homeschool. There are also tuition online public schools, which are not quite as common, but they are available. The state pays for them, and your child would log in on a computer and do their schoolwork, and they would actually have a teacher, and the grades would be submitted to the Board of Education. Now, homeschooling also allows flexibility. The parent and the children can determine what schedule works best for them. We spoke of the 180 days that children must attend school, but it's any time within a 12-month period. It also allows you to be able to take some time off if you choose to. And you can also add electives for your children. If your children say like sports or music, or in the case of my children, arts and crafts, you can add that in. In fact, I found this little card kit at the homeschool store. It has the car, it has all the glue, the paints, the sandpaper, everything with it, and it was only $2. So as you can see, in some areas, it doesn't have to even be expensive for you to add additional things into your child's curriculum. Also, separation of church and state does not apply, so if you choose to add Bible study, you have the freedom to do that. So as you can see, homeschooling is a viable option to traditional public schools or private schools. We've gone over the legal guidelines, the standard courses, and you now know that you can also add electives. Just please remember, all children do not learn the same way, and homeschooling is just another choice that gives parents and children a way to spend more time together and a way for you to customize your child's education. Thank you so much for your time.